Thank you, Emily, and welcome also from my side to this session on consumer intuition. But let's start with this. Let's talk for a couple of minutes about the pandemic. When we listen to what people said about the pandemic, lots of them were talking about this is a black swan, which means that it is an unexpected event that we could not predict. But if you listen carefully to Taleb, which is the author of the book with the same name, he says it's not a black swan, it's a gray rhino. It's an event that we could have expected, but we just ignored it. We just ignored the warning signals. Well, we could say that that's correct, because already in 2015, during a TED Talk, Bill Gates warned us for a global pandemic that would have a huge impact on the global economy. But we just ignored the warning signs in our pursuit of profit and progression. Just like we also are ignoring the warning signs when it comes to the impact of what we do as humanity on our planet. Just like we also ignore the fact that not all people are happy in their work. We ignore the impact on people. If we just look at this number, 13%, it talks about the number of people that is truly happy in their jobs, which is, let's agree, not a lot. This all has to do with the fact that we look for short-term impact rather than that we are waiting for long-term impact. This is called the Almond Effect, and it's named after the part of our brain and the shape of the part of our brain that is responsible for this, for the fact that we think short-term rather than long-term, and we go for the short-term gains. So we would better think long-term. And that's also what the World Economic Forum is proposing. They use the donut economics model of Kate Raworth as what they say is the way out and the way forward. We should, of course, still look for progression. We, of course, should still look for growth, but taking into account the impact of that on our planet and on people. So let's say that the pandemic was a little bit like a wake-up call for the business world. But also for consumers, it was a big moment of reflection. From the studies that we have done and the trends that we see that consumers expect from companies that they take into account people and planet more than ever before. But we also see that the pandemic acted as a tailwind for what they expect from companies in terms of experiences, in terms of the types of products and services they provide them with. And of course, one of the big kind of changes was the fact that we all went online more than ever before. If we look at numbers by IBM, they state that e-commerce went ×5, meaning that even people who didn't have any kind of digital or e-commerce experience before, all of a sudden are discovering that wonderful world. There is another study by McKinsey that actually shows that in only the first 8 weeks of the pandemic, we already gained 5 years in terms of digital adoption and digital maturity at the customer, at the consumer side. So it goes without saying that consumers expect more from companies now when it comes to the experience those companies are offering, especially when it comes to the digital experience those companies are offering. Because we had many great experiences, and now we expect that all the experiences that we will have in the future from different companies and brands in different industries will be as good. That's what at Accenture they call liquid expectations. We compare future experiences with the best experience we ever had, no matter in what industry it was. So the best e-commerce experience that we had and how great it was and how effortless and frictionless and personalized it was, well, we will also expect that in the future from our bank, from our insurance company. So let's take a look at a couple of examples of brands that are offering those great digital experiences nowadays. This is snacks.com, and it's a platform that PepsiCo launched during the pandemic. The whole idea is that you can create your personalized box of PepsiCo snacks in a very easy way, in a very effortless way, with just a couple of clicks. And of course, it's delivered at your door. Or this example from Amazon, the Amazon Go stores, Amazon's physical stores, where it's all about effortless and frictionless shopping. You just walk in, you take out the groceries that you like, that you need, and the system, the technology in the shop is registering everything, and you don't need to pass through a checkout. No, you just walk out. And again, the technology registers what you have bought and is immediately taking it from your credit card. Easy, no? And then we have this example from Starbucks, but we also see a similar approach from Luckin Coffee in China, where it's about the just-in-time delivery of your favorite coffee. You push the button on the app that you're on your way, and the app detects when your coffee needs to be ready, your favorite coffee. So effortless, frictionless, but also personalized. And your coffee is ready if you pass by your favorite Starbucks store. But it's not only that people expect effortless and frictionless and personalized experiences. No, in the future, we will also expect more proactive experiences. And not only in the future, it's already happening. So it's already becoming, think liquid expectations, the new expectation for all of us, for all of you, for all your brands as well. And proactive means that we give consumers what they want before they have even expressed it to us. And a great example is ZhongAn in the insurance world. It's a Chinese insurance company, and they are very well known for their micro insurances, so very tiny insurance products. A great example is their insurance against a cancellation of your flight. You can even get one last minute through their app. You can even walk into the airport and decide, yes, I want an insurance against the cancellation of my flight. And if while you're waiting for your plane to board, there's all of a sudden that sign that your flight is canceled, you don't need to do anything. They pick up the publicly available data about flights, and they immediately make sure that your money is on your bank account. And you will just receive in minutes from the cancellation of your flight a notification on your app. Hey, the money is already on your bank account. So that's the type of experiences we already today expect from companies. And there is no industry that can escape from this, because we will always compare our future experiences with the best experience we ever had. So the bar is constantly raised. But there is more. Consumers, in a world where everything is possible in their eyes, don't want to make trade-offs anymore. That's what we call the tragedy of the or boatism. A couple of examples. They want the best product that is efficient and effective, but they also want that product to be sustainable. They want great digital experiences, as we just saw, and they want technology to play a very important role in their lives. But on the other hand, they also want digital detox. And then you get these kind of crazy products like Flipped, which is technology, an app that helps you to digitally detox. We want access, but we also want ownership. If we look at car sales during the pandemic, we start to value more having our own car rather than using car sharing or using Uber or Didi because of the safety, because of the hygiene. But on the other hand, we also like flexibility. Like when it comes to our interior, maybe we want a fresh kind of look every other year. And that's exactly what Feather offers in the US, a subscription to furniture. So that means that for a fixed amount every month, you have a new furniture or a makeover of your living room every year or just when you want it. So you see that consumers expect now different things from companies, and the pandemic, in a lot of the cases, acted as a tailwind. Trends that were already going on just got more mature. What do we expect? What do consumers expect from brands? What are the different needs brands need to fulfill? Well, first of all, the basic needs. A great product, a great service that is in line with what they are looking for. On top of that, a great experience. And more than ever, that's also a great digital experience. But consumers want more. They also want brands to play a meaningful role in their lives and to help them with their personal ambitions, their hopes, their dreams, their fears. And last but not least, they also want brands to have a positive impact on society and play a role in the society, the world they are living in as consumers. So that are the 4 types of needs that brands need to fulfill these days. And if they want to do that, of course, they need strong consumer insights or customer insights on each of those 4 levels around each of those 4 needs of consumers and customers today. A nice example of a company, a hotel chain, that has played on those 4 different needs and created by doing that almost like the perfect offer for business travelers is Citizen M. If you look at their product, there is a very strong insight behind it. Because the CEO of Citizen M was also the CEO of a fashion company, and a lot of his employees were traveling around the world for business. But every time they came back, they were not happy at all. They had to stay in bad hotels with a bad experience. Because, of course, budget was not unlimited. So he said it should be possible to create a hotel room that is both affordable, but is also fantastic in terms of an experience, affordable luxury for business travelers. And that's what they did. They made the hotel rooms half as big, but they put in the same effort to make them look good in terms of design and to make sure that there are lots of kind of features that business travelers want today. There is special lighting in the room, you have free Wi-Fi, you have free movies, and it looks good. And in lots of cases, you have a nice view as well. Great. So a great product. But on top of that, also a great experience. And they used a lot of technology in what they do for their customers to really make sure that they can take away all the frictions. Like you don't need to wait for check-in. No, you can do a self-check-in. Or even during the pandemic, they created an app that acts as your room key so that there doesn't need to be a check-in anymore. You create your room key in your app, you just walk into the hotel, up to your room, and your smartphone becomes your room key. So technology is being used to create a great experience, to take away some frictions that normally business travelers have. And the staff in the hotel, well, they add the human touch. They create a fantastic experience so that you feel at home. They also don't call their lobby a lobby, they call it a living room, and you can meet there with like-minded people. So a great product, a great experience. But on top of that, they also try to play a role in the lives of business travelers, beyond the need of the bed and the breakfast. They try to really serve the many different needs of business travelers. Needs that normally a hotel wouldn't serve. Like in the evening, you can follow a course or a workshop there to fulfill your lifelong learning needs and goals. But you can also have electric bikes, so you can travel through the city from one meeting to another in a more pleasant way, in a more healthy way. And they are even offering meeting rooms, even if you are not staying with them. So for example, if you are on a day trip to Paris, but you're not staying with them because it's just a day trip, you can still make use of a meeting room there if you are a loyal customer. So they have thought about how can we facilitate the hopes, the dreams, and the ambitions of business travelers? How can we play as a brand a role in that? How can we fulfill more needs than just the traditional needs a hotel fulfills? And then on top, as a cherry on the cake, they also want to play a positive role in society. And in business, inclusivity and equality is an important topic. So that's what they promote within their organization, but also very actively towards the business community. So you can clearly see that this brand has listened very carefully to what the needs are of the target group. They have turned those needs into strong consumer insights on each of the 4 levels of our needs pyramid. And they have used those insights to create a perfect offer for the business traveler. Talking about purpose, talking about societal impact, that can also be your USP as a product, as a service. The example that you see on the slide is Ticker, which is a UK web platform to do investments. And you invest by choosing first a societal goal you believe in. For example, if you take climate change, you're going to invest only in companies who are having that close to their heart and who are making the difference when it comes to climate change. So very interesting concept. It's clear from these examples and from our needs pyramid that today consumers have many different needs. And if as a brand, as a company, you want to be successful, you need to play on those many different needs. You need to fulfill those many different needs that consumers and customers have today. You need to be hyper relevant, as we are living in the age of relevance. It's only when you're relevant, when you fulfill the many needs of your consumers, that you will be successful. Or we can also put it this way. We need to move from marketing to consumers to mattering to people. That's what David Jones, the former CEO of Havas, said. And I think it's so true. We need to think, how can we play a role in the lives of our consumers? And what is it that we need to do then? And some brands haven't done this, and they have learned it the hard way. Like Windows 8, when it was launched by Microsoft, it wasn't a success at all. And afterwards, at Microsoft, they said, well, we know why. And the main reason why is that we created the product from what was technically possible, not from what the consumer wanted, what the consumer needs were. We didn't listen to our consumers. We didn't interact with them up front. And if, as a company, you are not listening, you will not only fail, but consumers will maybe take it into their own hands. Like this example, Native, which is a deodorant only based on natural ingredients. The idea comes from a guy who was just waiting in line in the supermarket to pay his deodorant. And while waiting, he was just looking at the back of it, looking at the ingredients, and he didn't recognize any of the ingredients. And that's the moment that he thought, hey, I would like to have a deodorant of which I recognize all the ingredients that are all natural ingredients. So that's where he had the aha, and that was the start of his company, Native. By now, Native is acquired by one of the big FMCG giants, which is interesting because they could have listened to consumers themselves, and probably they could have come up with the same type of product if they were close to their consumers, if they were listening to their customers, if they were trying to be hyper relevant. So relevance is important, more important than ever before. Secondly, there is also speed. As it was once said by Klaus Schwab, Today, it are not the big fish that eat the small fish. No, it are the fast fish that eat the slow fish. And it's true. It's definitely true. Speed is also very important next to relevance. And a nice example is the Chinese market. If we look at the fast company 50 most innovative companies of 2019, you will see that in the top 10, there are lots of Chinese companies. The number one is even a Chinese company. Why are Chinese companies so innovative? Well, because they are pushed to be innovative and to be hyper relevant and fast by the market, by consumers and customers. For every company in China, there is at least one or two alternatives. So that means that the company that will win the race is the company that is fulfilling the many different needs of consumers the best, but also the fastest. So you can clearly see how consumers are pushing companies in the direction of being hyper relevant, using also lots of technology to fulfill those needs of consumers, and they want it now because they will move towards the company that is fulfilling their needs the quickest and the best. And you can say, yeah, being relevant, being close to your consumers, being fast, being agile, that's easy if you are a startup. That's easy if you are one of those companies, unicorns without heritage, without a legacy. But if you are a big organization, if you are a traditional company, that's difficult. And that's true. That's true. But you need to reinvent yourself if you are a big organization in this direction. How can you be closer to your consumers? How can you be more relevant? And how can you act quicker? How can you be more agile? And that's what they call nowadays, you need to become a phoenix. You need to transform your company. You need to reinvent your organization. And that's exactly what Haier did. Haier is a Chinese company that is specialized in home appliances. And in the beginning years of its history, and it's already, it started very early, and the first kind of versions of the company are more than 100 years old. And in the beginning, it was all about efficiency. It was all about quality. It was about, can we produce great products at scale? But when they reached that goal, they said, what is it that today we need to do to have a competitive edge? And they said, well, we need to be relevant. We need to be close to consumers. And within the company, they have a mantra, zero distance to the consumer. And with zero distance to the consumer, they mean that they constantly listen to consumers and constantly act upon the new needs of consumers. And in order to realize that, they have created an organization that can act quick, that can act fast, that is agile. And they have done that by creating many small kind of units, startup-y kind of units within the bigger organization. And each of those units is able to take its own decisions. So close to the consumer, zero distance to the consumer, and speed and agility combined. And that's what makes that this company is seen as one of the most innovative companies in its industry, in its sector. So then the question is, if speed, agility, and relevance, being close to consumers, intimacy, if that are the two important kind of characteristics that companies need to have nowadays, what type of research do we then need? Well, that's where consumer intuition comes in. That's where the title of this webinar comes in. If this is where the way forward, we also need a different way of research. We need to move from consumer intelligence to consumer intuition. And I will explain together with my colleagues to you now the difference. We will together define consumer intuition. But let's start with a little bit of history. the history of market research. This is Betty Crocker, and it's a brand of cake, instant cake, ready to bake cake if you want. And this brand was one of the first users of commercial market research, of commercial focus groups. When the brand was launched, it wasn't an instant success. So they did research to see what's wrong with our product. And they found out that in the 50s, housewives felt like this is not really cooking. This is not really baking, because you almost don't need to do anything. So from that focus group, they came to the aha, oh, wait, if we ask them to add an egg, it feels probably more like cooking. So that's what they did. They just added one little step in the whole cooking, the whole baking process. And then that worked. That made that it was more accepted by consumers, and the product all of a sudden became a success. It's great. Consumer intelligence being used to make the product a success. But we could think about a couple of things. What if we had talked to consumers upfront? Then probably we would have known this, and we could have done this from the start. What if we didn't do the research in a lab setting, like a focus group room, but we were there when those people were cooking and baking? We probably would have learned more, and maybe we got ideas and insights that could lead to other great innovations. What if we could understand more of the lives of the target group? That would also help us to play a role in their lives beyond that one and single need. What if, in other words, we could go to Gemba, what the Japanese call the real place, the place where the action happens? What if we could be close to the moment where consumers are using our products? What if we could be close to their lives and how their lives are evolving? That would probably be more insightful. That would probably lead to many different other insights and ideas. So what we need today is 360-degree understanding. If we look back at the needs pyramid, there are many different needs. There are many different kind of roles we have to play as a brand in the lives of consumers. So we also need to understand their lives better than ever before. So we need diverseness in our observations. We need to be able to follow them, to immerse into their lives by photos, by videos, by conversations, all those kind of things. We really need to get close to them in that sense. And also during the pandemic, that was of great help, this capability of really immersing into the lives of consumers, of diverseness in observations. As we see here in the quote of Tina of GSK, capturing the context of consumers' lives was a need that we all had. What is happening now in their lives? How are they feeling? What are they doing? And how can we react to that as a brand? So now Eva will share with us the Nike case, and it's a great illustration, I think, of the importance of diverseness in market research and in your observations. Eva, can you tell us a little bit more about what you did for Nike around Gen Z consumers?
Sure. Thanks, Tom, and hello, everyone. Yes, Nike actually, the Hong Kong team came to us, and they have this problem. You know, Nike Sportswear has been targeting youngsters as one of the key customer segment, and they have been doing the marketing, you know, trying to reignite the sneaker culture in Hong Kong. But then in order to do this, they actually see a gap in getting in touch with the heart of customers. They feel there is something wrong. They are not really engaging with them. So they have actually done some internal projects trying to, you know, get some referrals, talk to the youngsters in an interview setting, get them locked up in a room and ask them what they want, what are their dreams, etc. And as expected, you know, when you ask the youngsters in such a setting, they are super quiet, they don't really respond. You are not able to get the real answers from them. because they don't trust you, right? And it's really, really difficult to ask them open up in just like 1 hour, 2 hour setting. So they came to us with this challenge, and we actually proposed them to use online community. Now we have invited them to adopt an online community for 3 weeks, where we recruit 30 young customers, not just ordinary customers, but those who are really into fashion and sneakers. We make this a super engaging, interesting exercise, a community for people to express themselves. And we have, specially designed the community in a way that it speaks the language, so we don't really, betray ourselves with our age. So we close the generation gap, and we design the activities in a way that they feel really engaging. And in fact, they are able to create new topics, and there is quite a bit of organic conversation going on when they are really engaged and find the topics relevant to them. So on this slide, you could see actually plenty of images of the customers. They are not stock photos. They are actually real photos, videos sharing from the youngsters we spoke to. And they are so happy to be able to share the experience like sneaker collection there. And those on the right-hand side, you can see there are a lot of text response. For those who are not sure, actually for those customers in Hong Kong, young and old, they hate writing. So it's really very, very difficult to ask them give us detailed feedback. But for exercises we have established throughout the 3 weeks is really a surprise to us, as in the depth and what they are really happy to share with us and support with a lot of images, etc. So that's a really interesting project. The client enjoyed that, and we enjoyed it very much too.
Yeah, it's really nice to see how you actually almost lived together with those youngsters for a long period of time. You almost were with them all the time, and it's really cool to see how close you got and how rich, let's say, the understanding of their lives was. And I can imagine in fashion that understanding the different contexts in which they wear sneakers, for example, is also of huge importance. Can you tell us a little bit about how the results of this study, of this project, were being used by Nike to conquer the Gen Z consumer?
Sure. As I mentioned before, the strategy of Nike has always been, like one size fits all. Targeting the youngsters, let's go digital, right? Let's go social networking. That's such a stereotypical way of talking to youngsters. But when we look deeper, we are talking to those who are age 18 all the way to 24. And you can imagine they are high school students getting to university, first year, second year, third year, fourth year, and all the way to like first jobbers. You could see it's a really dramatic change in terms of life stage, adolescent, the pursuit of who they are, which all of these has a significant implication as in how they wanted to express themselves through fashion, all sorts of subcultures, sneakers, everything, is a lot of granular when we look into it. So we are able to tease and unpack the state of mind evolution throughout these life stages, and between males and females. So the client has a really clear idea as in who they should speak to, how they should speak to, and what are the approach, how should the approach differ from one subsegment to the other.
Yeah, fantastic. Great. So it's great to see how the 360-degree understanding of consumers, how immersing into their lives has actually led to a very successful strategy. Yeah, thank you very much, Eva, for sharing this wonderful case. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam.
So that's diverseness that we need. What else do we need? What else is a component of consumer intuition? Well, if we look at this quote of Jack Welch, which is the former chairman of General Electric, he once said, if the rate of change on the outside exceeds the rate of change on the inside, the end is near. And we are living today in a world that is moving hyper fast. And we just saw a couple of examples of consumers and how their expectations have changed and how their expectations are changing quite rapidly. And in the book Zine, you will see that there are lots of more examples that we have researched and written down. So it's very important, more important than ever before today, to have that finger on the pulse, to constantly understand what it is that your consumers want, need, feel, and do. But it's also important that you can act upon it. Not only that you learn from them, but also that you can turn it into action. And of course, if you then have ideas for new innovations, new experiences, new communication, that you can check those ideas back with those same consumers and customers, that you can make those ideas better, that you can develop them together into comms, into new innovations. So that are the two things that you need today. You need that constant finger on the pulse, but also that constant ability to turn insights into action together with consumers. You need the learning and you need the capability of structurally collaborating with consumers. And that's what we call, as a second component of consumer intuition, continuity. Having the capability to continuously learn from consumers and work together with consumers. And you see also in this quote from Tanya from Philips, how in COVID-19 times, in these unprecedented times, it was super important to be able to follow consumers, to see how their lives were evolving, but also to work together with the same group of consumers on certain projects. So that continuity is definitely something that is super relevant. In order to bring this to life even more, I have Jeroen on the call, and he will share what Jacobs Douwe Egberts is doing when it comes to continuity. Jeroen, welcome. Can you tell us a little bit more about that continuity capability of GDE?
Of course, thanks a lot, Tom. And of course, I'm happy to tell a bit more how continuity is embedded in the research capabilities we facilitate for Jacobs Douwe Egberts. I assume many of you will know Jacobs Douwe Egberts, but Jacobs Douwe Egberts is a coffee and tea company active in more than 100 countries with global brands like Jacobs, L'Or, Senseo, and Tassimo, but also has a wide portfolio of local heritage brands that you may know, like Douwe Egberts, Marcella, Grammer, Kenko, and Cavalia. Logically, these countries differ in terms of importance, size, and market dynamics, and this requires global consistency in solutions, with still having a local flavor to cover local nuances, specifics, and needs. This is clearly visible in the brand health tracker that we provide to Jacobs Douwe Egberts in more than 30 countries. We work from a global mandatory set of KPIs, consistent across all the countries, and offer a wide set of flexible modules to cover that specific local relevancy and really drive impact also for the local teams. But we also more and more see that there is a need for an agile approach, meaning flexibility, speed, iterative learning, but this also means a need for continuous consumer collaboration. Therefore, we installed a consumer consulting square in some of their key markets. This consumer consulting square is a hybrid solution, enable us to blend quantitative and qualitative research and provide Jacobs Douwe Egberts with a continuous inflow of consumer insights. This on a practical level, but also on tactical and a strategic level, and also available for both global and local teams, of course.
Yeah, it's interesting, Jeroen, to see that there is both the kind of capability to listen to consumers and to collaborate with consumers, to learn from consumers, and also to constantly then measure the actions that are taken based on those insights and what the impact is on the market. So both the community and the tracking solution go hand in hand here. Very nice. Can you give a couple of examples of how this capability that you just explained, how it actually helped GDE in general, but especially during the pandemic to be agile?
Yeah, definitely. I think we are continuously supporting them in kind of multiple ways. For instance, for concept development, we are using the consumer consulting square to develop, fine-tune and optimize new concepts before they are really finally validated for a go, no-go decision. So we are doing multiple qualitative and/or qualitative iterations with consumers to really understand and sharpen the friction, the benefits, and the reason to believe of the concepts. And together with Jacob Zouw-Egberts, we learned that applying this kind of process, this kind of iteration resulted in better concepts, less concepts to be validated, and overall better scoring concepts in those validations.
Yeah, that's great. That iteration, that continuous kind of checking back with consumers. What about comms? What about communication? Is it also used in that way?
Definitely. Advertisement is certainly one thing that we are doing quite a lot of within our squares, especially before, but also after pre-testing. We sometimes see that a certain advertisement is not meeting the high standards of Jacob Zouw-Egberts is applying. So they're really having a kind of a strict benchmark they need to reach before really going live and on air. So often we get an advertisement that are not meeting the benchmarks, really going back to the consumers, trying to find ways and understanding why this commercial is not performing towards their standards, and then apply sometimes an A/B test before really retesting this in the final in the final pretest.
Yeah, it sounds like a process, but is it also agile? Can it also be done quick? Because it's not only about continuously working together with consumers, it's also about agility. Is this something that can be done, let's say, overnight almost?
Almost overnight, indeed. I think a great example, what we did in the early phase of the COVID-19 pandemic. For instance, for the brand Douwe-Egberts, we went in dialogue overnight with consumers about whether a new created advertisement was having the right tone of voice in these uncertain times. But certainly also when talking about more continuity, of course, I already mentioned the brand tracker, for instance, and the modular approach. We also directly embraced the modular approach to include specific COVID-19 related questions to track, monitor the sentiment of consumers, understand the impact of COVID-19 on their behavior, and especially, of course, the impact of their coffee consumption in the different countries. So we are continuously trying to pick the best solution to be agile, but also having a kind of a continuous flow of consumer learnings, of course.
Yeah, thank you, Jeroen. I think it's a great case to see that it's both community and tracking. It's about listening to consumers, working together with consumers, but also measuring the impact of what you do on the market. And I think it shows that it's not only about continuously being connected with consumers and having agility as a company, also our research tools need to be agile, like the community. You can overnight, you can get feedback from consumers, but even a tracking solution can be agile in the sense that you have a modular approach. Great, thank you very much, Jeroen, for sharing this great case. Thank you. And then, last but not least, a third component of consumer intuition. We already have one. We need 360-degree understanding. We need diverseness in our observations. We really need to be able to be close to consumers and immerse into their lives and understand the context, understand their lives through and throughout. That's diverseness. We need continuity, what we just talked about with Jeroen. We need that constant finger on the pulse and that continuous ability to work together with consumers. Continuity, but last but not least, we also need empathy, consumer or customer empathy. Because only when we have empathy for the consumers, when we have consumers in our hearts, we will also be able to turn what we learn in those diverse observations during that continuous interaction into real impact. It's only then we will understand the insights. Only then we will be able to leverage the insights into impactful business actions. So we also need closeness. We need to feel close to consumers. All marketing people, innovation people, CX people need to really understand the consumer beyond the pieces of research they are doing. They need to feel them, so to speak. And a nice example is this one from Tina. And Tina is a seasoned client-side research professional in Australia working for big FMCG businesses over there. And she said, we want our marketeers who are in the day-to-day and in the details of their products to sit back and to talk to real people, real consumers from time to time, because only then they will be able to really understand the insights. Only then they will be able to do their jobs in a good and great way. And I think during the pandemic, when things are changing, that's even more important than in other periods. Again, to bring this last component of consumer intuition to life, I want a guest, and that's Diana. And Diana will share with us the wonderful work she's doing together with the team for Heineken, the beer company. Diana, can you tell us a little bit about the history of the community, the square we have in the air for Heineken, the Innovators Brew House?
Yeah, sure. Hi, Tom. It would be my pleasure to tell you a little bit more about it. So actually, Innovators Brewhouse community is one of our oldest. So it's been live since 2016, and it's been running nonstop since then. It's actually quite a unique one, as most of the time we run communities in local languages, also some of our other communities that we have for Heineken. But this community is very unique as we have over 15 countries here, and participants from all of these countries are talking to each other in English. Now, you might wonder why exactly this is so. Actually, this is the decision that we made together with the Heineken team to meet the goals of this community. And this is because we were looking for something that would be highly efficient and fast-paced. It was really about that first sense check, that dip in the water for big global projects that did not really make sense to have a look at a very local level yet, but rather to understand if it would make sense on a global level. Be that a solution, an innovation, or even a communication that Heineken or one of the Heineken brands was looking to put on the market. In terms of the kind of projects that we do on this community, it is mainly qualitative. So due to the kind of sample that we have there, we're talking to approximately 30 participants within each country, but also because we have an opportunity to talk to over 15 countries, 30 participants each, we also utilize this community for some lean quants, which makes it very multifunctional and a very great tool to work with. Maybe some examples of challenges that we do, it really varies from very tactical concept tests, communication tests, but also really immersing with the clients, some early innovation stage projects where we're really tapping into discovering some tensions or maybe some consumer journeys.
Sounds very interesting. Of course, we are here to talk about closeness and consumer empathy. How do you use this platform to bring marketing people, innovation people closer to consumers? How do you create that connection so that they, beyond the projects that they do, the research results that they have that kind of feeling for consumers so that they can truly understand what we show to them when we share research with them, and that they, of course, understand consumers well enough to be able to turn those insights into action? How do you use the community to do that?
Great question, Tom. Thank you. So indeed, it's not enough to just continuously run research on the community to truly create that empathy. And empathy is very important for Heineken, especially now, as they truly feel that consumer closeness is very high on the strategic agenda of Heineken at the moment. And what we do with the community is that we enable the Heineken team to connect with consumers. How do we do this specifically? A very good example here is the recent Consumer Connect project of 2020 that we actually launched in September this year. It's a headquarters initiative that was also aimed to unify the CMI teams across the globe and to share best practices with one key goal: to build empathy and to get closer to the consumers. Because Heineken these days is much more than beer, as it looks beyond the classic boundaries of what previously defined them, it's even more important to get closer to the consumers and understand what really is meaningful to them. So actually, during this project, Heineken talked to 3 target groups that they feel that they need to win in. Step to winning in these target groups is to understand them and to bring them closer. And we, as a company, aim to help Heineken discover who those people are, bring them to life, and help to connect them, to bring them into the organization outside of a PowerPoint presentation full of data. So in the first stage of this project, we collected video testimonies that brought existing insights and existing data to life. So already not really putting aside all the research that Heineken has done before. It is valuable and we want to have it there. We want to build further on it, but really wanted to bring it to life with true and real consumer testimonies. And in the second stage, we actually connected consumers with Heineken teammates to create more empathy. So via small, very easy 30-minute interviews that we facilitated, Heineken employees were able to talk to real consumers and to ask them questions and engage in meaningful conversations in order to create insights, create empathy, which then can be turned into relevant actions.
Very nice. It almost feels like the 2 characteristics that we already discussed, diverseness and continuity, are here to come up with super relevant insights. And then this closeness component is bringing those insights to life and is helping Heineken people to really deeply understand target groups that they are not that familiar with. So I can clearly see why consumer closeness is so high on their agenda. If you're a company in transformation trying to serve new target groups with fresh needs, I think it's super important. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Diana, for sharing the great work you're doing together with the Heineken team. Thank you. So here we have consumer intuition. We just went over the 3 characteristics of it. Diverseness. We need to immerse into the lives of consumers. We need to understand the full context, the full environment in which they live. And we need rich data. We need photos, we need videos, we need lots of conversations. We need to follow their lives over time. We really get a 360-degree understanding if there is diverseness in our observations. And then we need continuity. We need that constant finger on the pulse. We need to constantly understand how their lives are evolving, what their changing expectations are. And today, as we have seen in the beginning of the presentation, that's even more important than ever before, having that constant finger on the pulse. But not only having that listening capability, that capability to understand consumers, also having the capability to turn it into action together with them, to work together, to collaborate with consumers every single day. And it was very nicely illustrated by Jeroen in the GDE case. It helps you to be more relevant and to change strategies sometimes overnight if something happens in the world and your communication all of a sudden doesn't seem to be on point anymore. And then finally, you need closeness, because you can have all the data and all the insights in the world, but you need to understand what consumers tell you there. You need to have enough empathy to feel it. The insight need to come to life through being close to consumers, through the interactions one-on-one with consumers. And we saw that very nicely in the case of Heineken. I think how they really invest in being close to consumers, in consumer empathy, to really make sure that they will hit the right nails when they come up with new products for new target groups. So diverseness, continuity, and closeness is what we need today. It's much more than consumer intelligence. We call it consumer intuition, the ability to understand or know something immediately based on intrinsic understanding of the consumer rather than solely facts. So move away from consumer intelligence, move forward, move towards consumer intuition. And of course, as you have seen, communities, or as we call them, squares, are a great methodology to help you with that. And of course, if you want to know more, much more, there is much more in our book zine, from consumer intelligence to consumer intuition. So I would be very happy if you take the time afterwards to read it, and our teams will be sending it to you together with the recording of this session.